Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 215, the Mark Your Calendar edition. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. Today's January 2016.
Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. George and I have spent the year talking about some real tough issues. The Anglican Communion, the Roman Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church. And it's time to have a lighter episode. And there's been some stories recently that George and I picked up on and said, why don't we talk about that? We're tired of talking about Justin Welby, although we'll probably talk about him today. We're tired of talking about the Anglican Communion, but we'll probably still talk about that. Kind of tired of talking about the Pope, but we're going to end up talking about him too. But I saw the story that we're going to discuss once and for all whether we can agree upon the date of Easter. Now, those of you who read the New Testament, particularly the book of John, remember John 17, kind of the farewell prayer, the high priestly prayer of Jesus. He says, you got to get along. You know, I and you and me, the whole thing, it only works if we all do it together. And since then, we've not really even agreed on the date of Easter, George.
No, not for, 600 years, 600 years.
And one of the problems we have is man, or different societies of men, have not really been good at keeping calendars. There's a Greek calendar, a Julian calendar, there's the Jewish calendar, and nobody really cared a lot back 2,000 years ago about exactly when Passover was. Because if you remember, the resurrection is right after the Passover, or the Good Friday, the Holy Week, and
Yeah, I mean, that's why Jesus was in Jerusalem
that's
that
why he
week.
was there. So if we can nail down Passover, it's certainly going to be easy enough to nail down Easter within a week or two. But we can't agree on that, George.
No, this Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar. It's not exactly exact. And also, we have to have Easter on a Sunday, and Passover flits from day to day to day. So, in the 3rd century, the Council of Nicaea set a date for Easter based upon some tables and the Jewish calendar, and it was finally finalized around the 6th century, and everybody's happy until the Gregorian calendar reforms. In the 16th century, Pope Gregory adopted a new calendar, adding a leap year, and he came up with new Easter tables.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody in the West uses the Gregorian calendar. Everybody in the East uses the old Julian calendar. That's why the Russian October Revolution took place in November, because the Julian and the Gregorian calendar separated. Well, in 1923, the ecumenical patriarch decided, okay, we'll adopt the Gregorian calendar too, and the Russians said, forget that. So the Orthodox, some of them do the Gregorian, some do the Julian, and this year, the Orthodox Easter is going to be on May 1st, and ours is going to be on March 27th. And that's a particularly long coffee hour to stretch it from the 27th to May 1st.
Well, when I was at Canterbury, one of the references during the press conference was Justin said, listen, we're going to talk to Pope Francis and other leaders of Christian churches around the world about getting together on having a same date Easter. And that all works. I think most people would be in agreement, except for maybe the Russian Orthodox.
Kevin, I have to tell you, Justin Welby is extraordinarily clever man. Okay?
That's not what you said in the pre-show, but okay.
He's an extraordinary clever man. He goes into a press conference filled with the most pro-gay media posse you've ever seen in your entire life. Every gay activist who has a printing press in his basement is there asking questions, and being mean and nasty. Now, let's pause. This final communique, you have to remember all the GAFCON primates had left when they wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
They left after they got the discipline of the Episcopal Church. They achieved what they set out to do. This wasn't a formal primates meeting anyway, so any sort of communique is nonsense. They got the real meat of the meeting, which was discipline, or consequences, however you want to call it, of the
Sanctions.
Episcopal Church,
Yeah.
and then they left. So that left everybody else in the last day to talk about global warming, the polar bears
Sure.
drowning and this and that. And one of the things was, well, the ecumenical patriarch says he'd like us to sign on to the common date for Easter bandwagon. And Justin Welby trots that out as a diversion against what the primates had done to the Episcopal Church.
And I must interject
It's a,
here.
it's a, it's a, it is a ploy because he knows better than to say that this is going to happen.
But it did work because the lady who was from the New York Times who was at the meeting came up to me after. What did he say about the calendar thing in Easter? And so it was a great diversion. It worked. But in reality, there are going to be some high level discussions about whether or not we can agree on Easter.
Kevin,
The first
yeah,
fulfillment of John
yeah,
17.
yeah. I mean, let me explain what's going on here. I mean, first off, the Anglicans are just signing on to somebody else's joining something somebody else started. Pope Paul VI started this all in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
All bad things happened at the Second Vatican Council, and this is another thing we can lay on Pope Paul VI's head. He said, let's celebrate the third Sunday in
That's right.
Easter as
Yeah.
a fixed day for Easter.
Mm-hmm.
And that went off like a lead balloon. I said, oh, that's very fine. Thank you very much. We're not going to do anything. The Coptic Orthodox Pope Tawadros II, Theodore II in English, Tawadros in Egyptian Coptic, in 2014 got onto this too. The Orthodox use the Julian calendar, but they conform their calendar to the ecumenical
That's right.
patriarchs.
Yes.
Even though they're not part of the Eastern Orthodoxy, they're called Oriental Orthodoxy. Nevertheless, let's take a big breath,
This
folks.
is inside baseball. Go on.
Take a big breath. So Theodore proposes, let's adopt Paul VI's date for a common date for Easter.
Mm-hmm.
And the Vatican, sure, we're happy to do whatever Paul VI said, and we're happy to join on board. And now Justin Welby has said, sure, we're happy to discuss this too. What they all have conveniently forgotten is that the Russian Orthodox Church has said, we are very keen that we all have a common calendar, but that means you adopt our Julian calendar. Mm-hmm. We will have a common date of Easter once you become Russian Orthodox. Until that happens, forget it. Now, in other words, Kevin, it's like I'm saying, I look out my window. I want to buy that house next door to the church, knock it down, and build tennis courts for our congregation. And if I announce that at the parish meeting, if I don't ask the owner of the land whether he wants to sell, but I'm announcing I'm doing that, it's a diversion against the fact that the organist went off with the choir mistress. In other words, I'm trying to create buzz over something that's not going to happen. Justin Welby knows full well that this is a dead issue.
Let's hope he knows that it's a dead issue.
Oh, how can you not? I mean, how can you not? Well,
if you look at the news recently, and we discussed this in our pre-show, Pope Francis just met with the Lutherans, and inside the Basilica, he celebrated Eucharist with the Lutherans.
Yes and no. Yes and no. Okay. We need to sort of stretch this a bit.
Okay.
Francis has done a lot of things this past weekend that is causing traditional Catholics to go bananas.
I would hate to be a cardiologist of a conservative Roman Catholic in Rome right now.
I'd love it because you get all this business.
Just like,
I mean, you would be sympathetic to your patients. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Monday, Francis gives a Vespers service. He gives a homily, and he's got David Moxon, the Anglican emissary, and Archbishop Gennadios from the Orthodox on either side of him, and he offers an apology for the way Catholics have treated other Christians down through the centuries. Okay, that's a big one.
Yeah,
Then he announces the same day that on October 31st, 2017, he's going to show up in Lund, Sweden. There, Kevin, you're getting me started on Switzerland, Sweden, and everything. What happens on October 31st, 2017? It's the 500th anniversary of Martin Luther nailing the 95 Theses on the cathedral door in Wittenberg, Germany. Mm-hmm. Francis is going to go celebrate Reformation. Now, when you celebrate, you're saying that's a good thing.
Yes.
Francis is going to the 500th birthday party of the Reformation, and he's a guest. Meanwhile, The Finnish Church of Finland Lutherans are invited to some ecumenical meeting at the Vatican. At the same time all this is going on, they have their meeting, and then they end the meeting with Holy Communion and prayers in the cathedral. Now the Finns all go up and they approach the communion rail and they go like this. Now they're not doing the Macarena. What are they doing?
What are they doing, George?
What are they doing? They're saying they're going up to the altar rail for a blessing. They're not receiving Holy Communion at a Catholic church. Well, the emissary from the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity, say that fast 5 times, they still have their arms folded.
That's right.
He shoves the wafer down their throats. So the Church of Finland is now in Eucharistic fellowship with the Roman Catholic Church. Now, Francis didn't do this. But the Francophiles within the Curia, who are all keen for reform, have taken their own step and have given communion to Finnish Lutherans. Oh, and oh, by the way, the Catholic Bishop of Finland is going bananas. You can't do that. They're not Catholics. No, 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 no. It was a mistake. The guy didn't know what he was doing. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He thought they were doing the Macarena. He didn't know that what this meant. No, just a blessing.
Yeah. So
Exciting time, and our team, his memorable moment about the calendar was that, well, it'll take at least 5 years because everybody's printed their calendars already.
yeah.
Now, see, this is why he's such a brilliant man. He is letting the world think he's a fool. And he's really not. He's saying things that an average human being, an average adult, anyone with any common sense would say, this man's a total idiot. But he's not a total idiot. So there's some deep plan, a cunning plan that the Archbishop of Canterbury is engaged in to somehow get us distracted from the real issues.
Well,
That could
now we're going to finish this show in a little bit of fairness. Yes, in pre-show we use different words for Justin Welby, but I do want to congratulate him for the Primates Gathering and for calling a Lambeth. I did not think that would happen, George. What was you and I speculated this? No, and it hasn't happened yet. But there was very little chance of another Lambeth. Just the cost, the passports, the blue tent issue. All those things were going to work against a future Lambeth.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be. I don't think it's going to happen at this stage. Why? Well, there's going to be a primates meeting, not another gathering, but a meeting in 2017 and 2018, and that meeting is going to look at the compliance of the Episcopal Church to the consequences / sanctions / timeout given to them by the primates.
Well, we just posted about 50 different responses. The majority start with F and end in U, George.
Francis Urquhart?
No, I mean, if I've ever seen a middle finger written, it came from the majority of bishops of the House of Bishops of the Episcopal Church.
Well, the Mark Andrus of San Francisco said the bishops were devious and dishonest, and those were the nice things he said about them.
The primates, yes.
The primates. If the Episcopal Church doesn't conform, what we'll see in 2020 is a Lambeth Conference. And we will see some American Episcopal bishops, but we will see those bishops who are in conformance with the wider mind of the communion invited. See, we need to sort of tease this out. See, a lot of people are out there posting because they base their knowledge on the rule book and reading press reports, and they have actually no knowledge of how the real world works in the Anglican Communion. Rules, we have no stinking rules. We don't need no badges. Rowan Williams began the move away from provincial identification. He told John Howe, Bishop of Central Florida, that the primary relationship is bishop to bishop, diocese to diocese, person to person, so on and so forth. And Michael Curry's been pouting that line too recently in defending the Episcopal Church, saying, oh, it's not as bad as you think. We still have these people-to-people relationships. What does that mean? It means that those bishops who authorize same-sex blessings in their diocese in 2020 will not be welcomed at Lambeth. If they are welcomed at Lambeth, then you're going to have a walkout that will make 2008's walkout look minuscule.
Sure.
But in 2020, we'll see some Episcopal dioceses. You'll see some bishops who may have the Bishop of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, who said, sure, why not? But he hasn't done any yet. He'll go if he quietly climbs down. Bill Love will go.
Bill Love is a guaranteed first class ticket to Lambeth, yes.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Foley Beach goes.
No.
Now, will Mark Andrus, who has said, hell's going to freeze over before I stop doing gay blessings, go? As it's constituted now, no. Simply because the primates are controlling the shots. See, Munir Nice is a nice guy. Who's Munir Nice? The Archbishop of Egypt, one of the senior primates. Munir Nice is a genuinely decent, nice, honorable man, and he only says nice things. He follows my mother's dictum. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. He has been saying how wonderful Justin Welby's leadership was and this and that. Yeah, right, pull another one. Justin Welby came out of this meeting with no depth of support except for the people who follow my Archbishop right or wrong. He alienated the Americans and the liberals. He alienated GAFCON. Now, he's made sure to keep Bangladesh on side. But in the big scheme of things, Justin Welby came out of this meeting much weaker. The communion's stronger. Welby's weaker because Michael Curry and Stanley Entagali and Nicholas Loco are really the ones calling the shots.
Absolutely. All right, we have how many? That's 18 minutes. We'll cut it short there. George, thank you for your time. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm the opinionated, always informative George Conger.
It's like you had extra coffee today, but you don't drink coffee. You did the Red Bull, don't you? Or
No,
Monster?
no. We had healing service today. I had a private. I still have my cassock on, Kevin. I haven't had an opportunity to change. I'm on a spiritual high, man. All that communion wine.
You've been watching Anglican Unscripted 215.